here today with Dr. Mark Bubbs, who's a naturopathic doctor, and we're going to talk about the keto diet.
Fantastic.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
So Mark, what is the keto diet?
Well, the ketogenic diet is something that's actually been around for a very long time.
Okay, so it's very trendy right now, but it's actually been around for...
Well, it's both actually. It's sort of a fad and an evolutionary survival switch.
Okay.
So back, many generations ago when we were walking around looking for food, our brains need a certain amount of glucose to survive. Today we always think of having to supply glucose in the form of carbohydrates to provide that fuel for our brain, but of course if we couldn't find food, we wouldn't have lasted very long in nature, whether it was searching for food, etc. So this is where ketones provide a really valuable fuel source. So your body breaks down body fat, gets sent to the liver, gets converted into ketones, and your brain can use this as a fuel source. So a really great way in terms of maintaining survival generations ago. But of course today we know that if we change our diets in certain ways, particularly lowering carbohydrates. So a ketogenic diet is a really low carbohydrate diet.
Okay.
So typically around 20 to 30 grams of carbohydrates, which means you're really eliminating all the starchy carbohydrates.
So what would a typical day look like? What would you be eating on the ketogenic diet?
So ketogenic diets, you're going to have effectively some protein, typically animal protein, 2 or 3 times a day. You're going to have your vegetables and more of the dietary fat. So all the fat that's in the meat that you're eating, things like added fats like butter, olive oils, avocados, things like that. It's all okay. But like a lot of successful diets, there's certain themes of a ketogenic diet. So if you look at the top foods, the most calorie-dense foods that North Americans eat. Right? 5 out of 6 are very high in carbohydrates. So there'd be things like grain-based desserts, breads, soda pop, pizza, alcohol. These are the most amount of calories that the average person's eating every day. So by proxy,
all very processed, right?
All very processed. So these are all the processed foods. So this is one of the ways that you can get some success, is that a keto diet effectively eliminates all those processed foods. So that's one of the reasons why it's had some success for sure.
Interesting. And paleo is also a diet that you hear a lot about. How is the ketogenic diet different than the paleo diet?
Yeah, paleo and keto are very similar. Right? A paleo diet is typically taking away all the grains out of the diet. So again, the breads, rices, etc. And so it doesn't have to inherently be very low carb. A paleo diet can have 100 grams, 150, 200, 300. It can have a lot more carbohydrate depending on the person. But when people just dive into it, they tend to have a lower carbohydrate intake. So it can look a lot like a ketogenic diet. At the end of the day, though, both of these types of eating patterns, and really any successful eating pattern, is again getting rid of all these sort of processed foods. So whether you're vegetarian, vegan, paleo, keto, when we start to remove all of these hyper palatable foods, which are foods that make us want to crave more, right? You want to snack more throughout the day. You have trouble going from breakfast to lunch without having a snack, or you have that mid-afternoon dip and you want to take a nap underneath your desk because you're struggling with energy levels. This is what we're trying to avoid by getting back to more real foods, whole foods, and in particular, when we look at the research, protein seems to be one of the real winners here. So when someone adopts, whether it's a keto or low carb or other successful diets, protein intake plays a big role because it helps with satiety, right? It's the macro that really helps to keep you full. It typically brings along with it a lot of nutrients. So the foods that are higher in protein, even if they're vegetable source, are going to be higher in other nutrients as well. And it costs more for your body. It's called a thermic effective food. So when you eat these things, it costs more calories in terms of your metabolism to process them. So that's one of the overarching themes, and something that we always try to help clients and patients with, is understanding what the principles are, and then you can pick the nutritional strategy that sort of works best for you.
Okay, so who is the ketogenic diet for? Is it for everyone? Are there certain people or certain needs that should be thinking about it?
For sure. I think the more someone is struggling with pre-diabetes, diabetes, things like metabolic syndrome, which is a lot of abdominal adiposity, high blood pressure, high triglycerides, this is when it becomes even more important to restrict carbohydrate, because we know, a big study just came out, the Virta study, showing some really great benefits in terms of really reducing carbohydrates for diabetics, being able to come off of their insulin medications, and a lot of improvements there. So the more someone's in that side of things, then definitely the more benefit they're going to get, especially in the short term. But like with any person, it's at the end of the day, one of the number one things, again, for successful diets is compliance. Can you stick to the diet for more than 3 months or 6 months or a year? So sometimes people will adopt a certain strategy. Maybe it's the keto diet to get some gains over the next 8 weeks, 12 weeks. And as they make progress, you want to figure out, is this a sustainable approach? Do they enjoy it? Do they like eating more fat, etc.? And then from there, you can start to titrate down and figure out, okay, if they do enjoy some more whether it's breads, pastas, this different eating style.
You add back a few things.
You add back a few things and you see where the progress takes you. Because at the end of the day, that overarching theme, which is key, is again, is total caloric intake, energy intake. So this is where, we can, that individualized approach becomes really key at the end of the day.
Interesting, very interesting. So back to basics.
Back to the fundamentals, we call them the basics makes it sound like it's not as good as the advanced. So I like to call them the fundamentals because of the principles across anything. And even when you look at experts in sport and elite athletes, we just had the Olympics on, those people are experts in the fundamentals, right? We always think that they're doing some crazy workout routine that no one's ever heard of, or no, they're doing basic movements, but they're doing them expertly, and that's where
hard work.
You get all the benefits from, right?
Great. Well, thank you for joining us today. This was a very interesting conversation.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.